Or have I stopped entirely? Okay, cool. So we'll keep going, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. All right. So we are on part 30 of our Quranic synopsis, where we're going to cover juz number 30. Inshallah ta'ala, there's loads of surahs to cover, and I'm not going to be able to do justice to all of the surahs in the time frame that we have at our disposal, inshallah, but we'll touch upon the surahs as best we possibly can, inshallah, and highlight some of the key sort of components and some of the things that are found in those surahs that aren't found in any other surah, inshallah ta'ala. So without further ado, we begin with Surah An-Naba. Surah An-Naba is anything that is information that is given to you that is monumentous or that is sort of grand in its scale. Some form of breaking news that you have to hear now. And if you don't hear now, then you're going to miss out. And if you don't get this news, then bad things are going to happen to you. So this is what An-Naba is. And this is the same word which the word Nabi is taken from in one of the ways in which we the etymology of the word Nabi is used or comes from. So the root word of the word Nabi comes from the word Naba, which is a monumentous piece of news. And so what the Prophet ﷺ has come with obviously is a monumentous piece of news that everybody needs to hear, and that is this Qur'an. So An-Naba is actually the Qur'an itself. So in it, it would help if I actually had my notes. In it, it's going to talk about a couple of things. Sorry. There we go. So in it, it's going to talk about a few things. The first and foremost thing it's going to talk about, or what it's going to open with, is sort of an account of what the pagan Arabs were mocking the Prophet ﷺ with regards to this great news. Amma yatasa'alun, after what are they asking one another? Anin naba'il azim, about a sort of a monumentous, great piece of news that is supposed to have come to them. And obviously, the piece of news that they disagree with, or that they are asking about with regards of, is the Qur'an, and by extension Yawm al-Qiyamah, because the Prophet ﷺ, even in this surah, there are going to be accounts of the Day of Judgment that are going to come later on in the surah. It's not that long. I say later on in the surah, it's pretty much the same page. But later on in the surah, the accounts of the Day of Judgment are going to come. So the pagan Arabs, the disbelievers, which is known, and it's said throughout the Qur'an, they were in dispute about the Day of Judgment, and they were in dispute about this Qur'an, and they are asking with regards to it. How do you know that this Qur'an is true? How do you know that the Day of Judgment is going to come? If the Day of Judgment is going to come, when is it going to come? الَّذِي هُمْ فِيهِ مُخْتَلِفُونَ. This piece of news, this Qur'an, or the Day of Judgment, or whatever the Qur'an comprises of, they are in disagreement with regards to it. They're in disagreement in what ways? Whether it's going to come, or whether it's true or not? No, not in that sense that they are disagreeing with. They are in disagreement of it as to whether or not it is a piece of poetry, a piece of literature, or whether or not it is magic, or whether or not it is fables and tales and stories of bygone eras, right? They are discussing and disputing amongst themselves as to what this Qur'an is out of these separate categories. And it's the same thing that the disbelievers, they discuss and dispute with regards to what the Qur'an is today, right? It's just, some fables and stories, just like the stories of before, in order to guide mankind and give them guiding principles, right? Others are saying, no, it's a great work of literature, but that's it. There's no truth to it, and there is no sort of hereafter, and all of the things that it promises, they're not actually real, right? So it's the same thing that the disbelievers are saying today that they were saying yesterday. كَلَّا سَيَعْلَمُونَ ثُمَّ كَلَّا سَيَعْلَمُونَ. Verily they are going to come to know, and no matter what happens, verily they are going to come to know. And then it goes on to sort of document the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creation. أَلَمْ نَجْعَلِ الْأَرْضَ مِهَادًا, in a rhetorical way, in the form of rhetorical questions. Have we not created this earth flat for them to walk over? وَالْجِبَالَ أَوْتَادًا, and the mountains in which this earth is held together. وَخَلَقْنَاكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا, and we have created you in pairs. وَجَعَلْنَا نَوْمَكُمْ سُبَاتًا, and we have made sort of your sleep as a rest, as a recuperation for your bodies. وَجَعَلْنَا اللَّيْلَ لِبَاسًا, and we made a night the covering. وَجَعَلْنَا النَّهَارَ مَعَاشًا, and the day in which you go out and in search of your provisions and your livelihoods and so on and so forth. All of these things Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying and mentioning, right? as favors that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has shown upon mankind. If you ponder and look at these things, not for what they are and their end result, but even for how they were put in place, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made the night a covering for you and a time of rest, right? To the point where sleeping in the day and sleeping in the night, heaven and earth between the two, right? Resting in the day and resting in the night, heaven and earth between the two. So it's the mechanics of how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has done these things, done these things as well as what they are in and of themselves. And that continues until verse number 30, verse number 17, in which there are sort of accounts of the Day of Judgment. Inna yawm al-fasli kana miqata. Day of Judgment is, the appointed time that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has set. يوم ينفخ في الصور فتأتون أفواجا. The horn will be blown and you will all come in groups. And then at the end of this passage of accounts of the Day of Judgment, because this is what they're disputing, right? They're disputing about the Qur'an, and the Qur'an, for the vast majority of it, is calling towards a recognition of the hereafter. That look, there is a life after death that is coming, and that you will be held accountable for all the things that you are going to do in this dunya. No other system can be put in place in order to check you guys and to keep you guys in order, except something that is way out of your control. It's not made by the constructs of man. This is made by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Anyway, so after it goes on to account for that, it goes on to talk about the rewards of the believers. إِنَّ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ مَفَازًا حَدَائِقَ وَأَعْنَابًا وَكَوَاعِبَ أَتْرَابًا وَكَأْسًا دِهَاقًا. So all the rewards that you're going to get in Jannah, and for those who have, and they are reserved for those who have taqwa. إِنَّ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ مَفَازًا. For the muttaqeen people is a success, and this success comprises of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things, inshallah ta'ala. And then there is sort of the legendary statement at the end of this surah: إِنَّا أَنذَرْنَاكُمْ عَذَابًا قَرِيبًا يَوْمَ يَنظُرُ الْمَرْءُ مَا قَدَّمَتْ يَدَاهُ وَيَقُولُ الْكَافِرُ يَا لَيْتَنِي كُنْتُ تُرَابًا. This day is a day in which you have been warned of, right? It's not something that is news to you. This is not the Naba al-Azim, right? This is not something that should be news to you, and this is regarding on the actual day of Qiyamah. يَوْمَ يَنظُرُ الْمَرْءُ مَا قَدَّمَتْ يَدَاهُ. They will look at what they have put forth for their own selves, what their hands have sowed, what they have themselves have reaped in this dunya. وَيَقُولُ الْكَافِرُ, and the disbeliever will say, the ones who are ungrateful, they will say, يَا لَيْتَنِي كُنْتُ تُرَابًا. If only I were dust, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has brought me back, alive again, brought me back to creation, right? I was dust before. I was something that was forgotten. If only I'd stayed in that state. And that is the sort of the hasra and the regret and the remorse that they will show on the Day of Judgment. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from that, inshallah ta'ala. Surah Al-Nazi'at. Al-Nazi'at is sort of the angels naza'a, right? Taking the soul out from the bodies, right? The stripping of the souls. Nazi'at. وَالنَّازِعَاتِ غَرْقًا. Al-Nazi'at is when they rip the souls out of the body with extreme force. وَالنَّاشِطَاتِ نَشْطًا وَالسَّابِحَاتِ سَبْحًا فَالسَّابِقَاتِ سَبْقًا. Then it goes on to sort of enumerate all of the different sort of jobs and occupations of the angels. So from them are those who take the souls out of the body. From them are those who bring revelation from the heavens. From them are those who send winds in order to bring change. And from those who are there to conduct or enact Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's commands whenever He commands them to, right? So all of them have different occupations, and that's what's sort of put out in the first part of this surah. Then there are accounts of the hereafter. يَوْمَ تَرْجُفُ الرَّاجِفَةُ تَتْبَعُهَا الرَّادِفَةُ قُلُوبٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ وَاجِفَةٌ. Giving accounts and descriptions in the most descriptive language of what's going to happen on the Day of Judgment. This is going to be a common theme that is going to take place in these surahs and in the surahs of this particular part. And it does so in not sort of this is going to happen, and then this is going to happen, and this is going to happen in sort of chronological events and physical events that are going to take place on the Day of Judgment. Rather, it's sort of more descriptive about what you're going to see and how you're going to feel, and how the things that you're going to see are going to affect you, both emotionally, physically, and how they would, if you were to see them today, affect you in the dunya. Then it goes on to narrate the story of Musa alayhi salam. هل أتاك حديث موسى إذ ناداه ربه بالوادي المقدس طوى, about the when revelation first came to Musa, اذهب إلى فرعون إنه طغى, and that the command came for him to go to Fir'aun and admonish him, فقل هل لك إلى أن تزكى, and ask him, do you not find a way to purify yourself? Should you not find a way to purify yourself? وأهديك إلى ربك فتخشى, and that I will guide you to your Lord so that you may be fearful and may be mindful of him. فأراه الآية الكبرى, he showed him his signs. فكذب وعصى, right? A very short, sharp, quick 2 words. فكذب وعصى. ثم أدبر يسعى. فحشر فنادى, right? All of these events that are taking place, that Musa alayhi salam came to Fir'aun, he warned him, and then Fir'aun rejected him, and then he turned away, and then he was brought together with Fir'aun and his people again. فقال أنا ربكم الأعلى, and then he said that I'm your Lord. فأخذه الله نكال الآخرة والأولى, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took him for all of them, from the first of them to the last of them, and he drowned them. إن في ذلك لعبرة لمن يخشى. That is a sign for those who are mindful, right? Again, it's not the specifics of the stories that are being mentioned, rather it is more to do with, look, take an example of what happened to the people of Fir'aun. A messenger was sent to them just like the Prophet ﷺ was sent to the rest of mankind. If you reject him, this will be your recompense. You're going to die, no matter what happens. Your death is going to come to you. How it comes to you, that's another thing. But the fact that you denied the messenger you're going to be held account for that, and there is going to be a recompense for that. And the people who directly opposed the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they came to a terrible end. So you guys, if you directly oppose the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then you too are warned of such an end that is going to come. Not some miraculous event that's going to come, just like what happened to Fir'aun, or just like what happened to the people of Lut and the people of Hud and so on and so forth. Not like these guys. Rather, it's going to happen at the hands of the believers, right? And that's exactly what happened to them. Then there's a documentation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's marvels in his creation, that look, the day of judgment is going to come. Things happen to the people in the past. If that is not enough for you to recognize, then have a look around you and see what's around you and the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala around you. If that is not enough, then nothing will be enough, and your hearts will be padlocked thereafter and sealed, and never will guidance come to you. And then that follows on with Judgment Day, an account of what's going to happen exactly on the Day of Judgment. So from verse number 34, فَإِذَا جَاءَتِ الطَّامَّةُ الْكُبْرَى يَوْمَ يَتَذَكَّرُ الْإِنسَانُ مَا سَعَى. Right? So on the Day of Judgment, that's when everyone's going to remember what they actually did. Right now, they don't care what they're doing, but on the Day of Judgment, they will remember every minute detail that they did. وَبُرِزَتِ الْجَحِيمُ لِمَنْ يَرَى. And hellfire, in which they all thought was a fairy story, will come, and they'll see it with their waking eyes. فَمَا مَنْ طَغَى وَآثَرَ الْحَيَاةَ الدُّنْيَا. So the one who oppressed, one who transgressed, the one who went overboard and was tyrannical in the way he enacted his affairs, and he preferred this life, hayat ad-dunya, right? He preferred this life. And when we say this life, we don't mean like the birds and the beasts and the trees and the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We mean the egotistical nature of mankind. He preferred the constructs of this world in terms of status and hierarchy and being at the top, and how wealth is sort of like the fulcrum of justifying or sort of putting people in place. So the more wealth you have, the higher up you are. The less wealth you have, the lower down you are, right? In society. All of those things, they're all constructs that we've made, right? That for us, it's taqwa. The more taqwa you have, the closer you are to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the better you are. You're the best person if you have taqwa. Forget if you're poor, even if you're rich, if you have taqwa, you're the best. And it's not your riches that make you good, it's your taqwa that makes you good. And this is the construct that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us from above the 7 heavens, revealed to the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Whereas the constructs that they've made are, only to support their own selves. Anyway, they prefer that over what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed. فَإِنَّ الْجَحِيمَ هِيَ الْمَأْوَى, and for them is the fire that is waiting for them. وَأَمَّا مَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ وَنَهَى النَّفْسَ عَنِ الْهَوَى. But as for the one who fears the court of his Lord, مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ, when he stands in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he's going to be held to account. This person Whoever has this characteristic in him, وَنَهَى النَّفْسَ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ. On top of that, in this life, he was disciplined. He forbade his nafs from falling into its own desires, just following its whims and its fancies, whatever it decides as being good, whatever it decides as being right, whatever it decides as being moral. One day it's something and the next day it's the opposite thing, right? This person, if he disciplines himself from doing that, right, and he fears the court of his Lord, فَإِنَّ الْجَنَّةَ هِيَ الْمَأْوَى. For verily, Jannah, that is going to be his abode. Then it finishes with them mocking this very concept of the Day of Judgment. يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ السَّاعَةِ أَيَّانَ مُرْسَاهَا. Right? They ask you regarding the Sa'ah, regarding the hour, when is it going to come? Right? When is this hour going to come that you promised yourself? فِيمَ أَنْتَ مِنْ ذِكْرَاهَا. Where are you with regards to its remembrance? And what this means is that I sort of like, what have you done to, or who are you to know that, Ya Rasulullah, right? You're just man, right? That knowledge is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It could also mean that, look, what is it that you should be doing to prepare for that day, right? فِيمَ أَنْتَ مِنْ ذِكْرَاهَا إِلَى رَبِّكَ مُنْتَهَاهَا. That day is going to be a day which the end result is going to be with Allah. You're going to all be taken, driven to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, guided and led to Him. إِنَّمَا أَنْتَ مُنذِرُ مَنْ يَخْشَاهَا. Rather, you just warn those who are fearful of that day. That is who you are warning. That is who's going to benefit from the reminder. كَأَنَّهُمْ يَوْمَ يَرَوْنَهَا لَمْ يَلْبَثُوا إِلَّا عَشِيَّةً أَوْ ضُحَاهَا. And when they are on that day, it is as if they've only spent a small amount of time. And Ramadan, right, is a testament to that. Where at the end of Ramadan, we look back to the beginning of Ramadan and it's just like a blink of an eye, right? And it's the same thing for our lives. Right? We look back at our childhood, we think, subhanAllah, that was just yesterday, man. Right? So Yawm al-Qiyamah is more so in that regard. Then the next surah is Surah Abasa. Abasa is a surah that is all about the frowning, right? Abasa, Abus. Someone who is Abus is someone who has a facial expression. And that facial expression is one of discontent. And the discontentness, it shows at the top of your face here. So when your forehead, I don't know, my forehead, does it do it? Like when there's that, can you see those lines there? I'm not doing it, I'm acting now, isn't it? So it's not going to come out right? But can you see that there? That is abus, right? So the lines that come in your head here, as a result of the bulge coming up in your eyebrows here, that bit is called abus. That is when you are abus, right? The rest of your face is fine. You're not saying anything. You're not doing anything. You're not like going red in the face or anything like that. Just those things have come up on your face, right? That is a frown, if you like, or that is what is abus. Okay. So this abasa, frowning, frowning. So this abasa, this abus, it happened in a story that took place with a companion called Abdullah ibn Maktum. Abdullah ibn Maktum was a blind companion and one of the earliest converts to Islam. And obviously this is a Meccan surah, so it's happening way back in the early times of the beginning of the prophethood of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. At this time, the Prophet, I don't have any abus, jazakallah, even if I try. So this account is taking place in the beginning times of prophethood, and it was happening when the Prophet ﷺ, he was directing his da'wah to some of the heads of Quraysh, and he was really working hard with them. And one of the elites of Quraysh, one of the heads of Quraysh, he suddenly had an interest to listen to the Prophet ﷺ and what he had to say. And so the Prophet ﷺ, he saw this as an opportunity to really give him da'wah and bring him to Islam, right? And so he worked hard, and he was like, giving him all his attention and really sort of telling him as much as he possibly could and trying to convince him and giving convincing arguments to him. And all the while, Abdullah ibn Maktum, who, don't forget, is blind, was listening to the conversation that was taking place, and he kept coming to the Prophet ﷺ and butting in. And he kept breaking up the flow of the Messenger ﷺ with regards to his da'wah and asking him questions with regards to what he wanted to know, what Abdullah ibn Maktum wanted to know, right? So the Prophet ﷺ, when he was doing this, obviously he's not saying anything to Abdullah ibn Maktum. He hasn't said anything to him. He doesn't say, listen, Abdullah, I'm gonna address your question. I'm gonna speak to you in a second. Just give me a second. Let me just deal with this, and then I'll come back to you, right? He didn't say anything like that. But rather, he just he kept, speaking to this person that he was speaking to from the elite of Quraysh. And when he persisted, when Abdullah ibn Maktoum persisted, the Prophet ﷺ, he frowned and turned away, right? Abasa wa tawalla. Or he frowned and Abdullah ibn Maktoum, he turned away. But whatever way you look at it, there was a frowning that took place from the Prophet ﷺ, and his turning away was diverting all of his attention to this elite from the pagans of Quraysh. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he did that, revealed to him verses. And these verses are really, really stern with regards to the Prophet ﷺ, right? And even when they were revealed to the Prophet ﷺ, since they were revealed, reprimanding the Prophet ﷺ for focusing so much attention upon a person who is indifferent with regards to what you're calling him to. He's indifferent with regards to the da'wah that you're calling him to, right? He's not even interested. He's showing an interest, but he just wants to be entertained by the words that you are giving him. He just wants you to, what is this Muhammad talking about? Let me just ask him, right? It's not like I'm going to believe. That's his approach. Whereas Abdullah ibn Maktoum, he already has believed. And when he's coming to, he wants to learn. And he genuinely wants to grow in his Islam. And he is genuinely interested. So the one who is showing genuine interest, you are turning away from. And the one who is just indifferent and is just happy just to listen to you, just to be entertained for a little while, you are giving all of your attention to that person. And you are only doing that because you reckon, in your own reckoning, that because of his sort of status in Quraysh and with regards to the pagan Arabs, he is going to be of some benefit to you. He is going to be of some benefit to your da'wah. He's going to be of some benefit to your current situation, right? But no, this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's way of telling the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that, look, you don't need anybody and their status. You don't need their wealth. You don't need their money. You don't need what their abilities to say and not say, and how much influence they have over others, and so on and so forth. You don't need any of those things. You only need Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to the point where when someone has iman of Allah in their hearts, he should be your priority. Even if he is poor, even if he is rich, even if he is blind, even if he can hear or he can't hear, doesn't matter. That is your priority. You don't need to pander to these people. You don't need to try and convince them. If they are convinced, they are convinced. If iman comes to their hearts, that is Allah's job to guide. You are there just to give them the message. Give them the message, it's all done. But when someone comes who is genuinely interested in understanding and genuinely interested in purifying themselves, right? That's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes. وَمَا يُدْرِيكَ لَعَلَّهُ يَزَّكَّى. That's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes him as, right? As someone who genuinely wants to purify himself. So it's realigning priorities. And we have that even in our own selves, right? We think that, somehow Islam is honored by certain individuals entering into Islam or certain people supporting Islam. It doesn't need that, right? Islam doesn't need that. Allah doesn't need that, right? Amma man istaghna. These people, this person that he's speaking to, he already thinks that he is rich. He already thinks that he is not in need of any Islam in his life. He doesn't feel the need to submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So what do you don't need this person. فَأَنْتَ لَهُ تَصَدَّى وَمَا عَلَيْكَ أَلَّا يَزَّكَّى. And it's not, even if this person that you are directing all your attention to, even if he doesn't enter into Islam, you are not responsible for that. You do not hold that burden. But the person who is in Islam and is coming to you for guidance, and you don't give him that guidance, there is the responsibility. There is the accountability, right? That is what is important. SubhanAllah. And you know what's really, really interesting about this particular passage, right? Is that Abdullah ibn Maktoum, you have to remember, was blind. And the Prophet ﷺ frowned, which can only be recognized by someone who can see his frowning, right? That's the only way you're going to recognize that the Prophet ﷺ is frowning. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he reprimanded the Messenger ﷺ for doing something despite the blind man not being able to see it. Meaning that, look, right, you may be frowning, right? And you may be sort of doing this. I can see you even though this person can't, right? And I recognize where your priorities are, even though this person can't, right? And even though you haven't shown him and you haven't made him feel like, you are sort of agitated by the fact that he keeps interrupting and keeps asking you questions, even though you haven't let off, right? You haven't told him that, look, Abdullah, look, can you just relax? I'm going to come to you. Can you just be quiet for a second? You haven't said anything like that to him. You've been courteous to him. On the contrary, he's the one who's interrupted you, and you've been patient with that interruption. But instead of addressing his concerns, you have ignored them and gone on to this person who is wholly disinterested in Islam anyway. So subhanallah, right? And when, you know, even after these verses were revealed, every time the Prophet he saw Abdullah ibn Maktoum, he would say, you know, Assalamu alaikum to the one who my Lord admonished me as a result of, or because of. SubhanAllah. And then Abdullah ibn Maktoum became such an illustrious companion after that. The Prophet even entrusted him with leading the affairs of the Muslims whilst he was on expeditions, or he went traveling, or sort of when he wasn't in Medina. Abdullah ibn Maktoum, for the vast majority of the time, he was one of the people who would take care of the affairs of the Muslims in his stead. SubhanAllah. And then it goes on to sort of talk about what you are created from, right? قتل الإنسان ما أكفره من أي شيء خلقه. Right? What is this mankind been created from? Right? These people that you think are going to give you honor and give you sort of strength, and they're going to help you in your da'wah and so on and so forth. These are just men like you, man. Right? On top of that, they think that they are rich, right? But their riches and what they have in terms of their provisions, متاعا لكم ولأنعامكم. Right? It is just provisions for themselves and their livestock and their animals, right? So it's almost as if like the provisions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to mankind, the humans and the animals are equal in that regard, right? And what separates us from them is obviously our proclivity to use our intellect, and also our submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our moral compass to discern what is morally acceptable and what is immoral. Anyway. So that's a pretty cool ayah. And then in the end, right, the end of this surah, right, it's talking about like sort of the day of judgment, the last day, and what's going to happen. There's going to be two groups: those who are going to be sort of darkened, their faces are going to be darkened, وَوُجُوهٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ مُسْفِرَةٌ, and others that are going to be sort of happy and enlightened, ضَاحِكَةٌ مُسْتَبْشِرَةٌ, and they're going to be laughing, and they're going to be sort of have sort of glad tidings and so on and so forth, right? It's interesting to see that the contrast between Abdullah ibn Maktoum and this disbeliever who was indifferent to Islam. Whilst Abdullah ibn Maktoum in the dunya can't see, on the day of judgment he is going to be surrounded by light that he is going to see, and he's going to be smiling and laughing on that day of the glad tidings that are going to come to him. Whereas the disbeliever on that day is going to be surrounded with darkness to the point where he can't see, right? وَوُجُوهٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ عَلَيْهَا غَبَرَةٌ, they're going to be covered with dust. ترهقها قطرة أولئك هم الكفرة الفجرة. SubhanAllah. Ajib, the contrast between the two, right? In this dunya and in the akhirah. Then we go on to Surah At-Takwir. And Takwir is basically the folding up, right? When something is folded up one on top of the other, that's At-Takwir. And it's usually in circular form. And it's this here it's referring to the sun. Either Shamsu Kuwirat, when it folds in on itself. And this is like a sort of an allusion to how the last day is going to come, how the destruction of this world is going to take place, and the steps that are going to take place in that. The first half of this surah is all about that. إِذَا الشَّمْسُ كُوِّرَتْ وَإِذَا النُّجُومُ انْكَدَرَتْ, when the stars, they lose their light, right? They die out. وَإِذَا الْجِبَالُ سُيِّرَتْ وَإِذَا الْعِشَارُ عُطِّلَتْ وَإِذَا الْوُحُوشُ حُشِرَتْ. All of these things is documenting all of the things that are going to take place in the run-up to the day of judgment. وَإِذَا الْجَحِيمُ سُعِّرَتْ وَإِذَا الْجَنَّةُ أُزْلِفَتْ عَلِمَتْ نَفْسٌ مَا أَحْضَرَتْ فَلَا أُقْسِمُ بِالْخُنَّسِ. And then the second half, from this point onwards, from verse number 15 onwards, الْجَوَارِ الْكُنَّسِ وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا عَسْعَسَ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears by a multitude of things. And after swearing upon all of these things, from the night and the day, and from the dawn, and so on and so forth, إِنَّهُ لَقَوْلُ رَسُولٍ كَرِيمٍ. Right? Swearing upon X, Y, and Z, that this messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is a noble messenger, and he has come with this Qur'an, and this Qur'an is a sign of his messengership. إِنَّهُ لَقَوْلُ رَسُولٍ كَرِيمٍ ذِي قُوَّةٍ عِنْدَ ذِي الْعَرْشِ مَكِينٍ. Right? He is going to be strengthened on that day. He's deemed strong with regards to his Lord. You may see him as one man, one message, in the middle of this town where everybody else is disbelieving in him, everybody else is mocking him. But to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he is the strongest. And that's what we have to remember, brothers and sisters, right? That your iman, even though everybody around you may be sort of maybe mocking you and maybe saying things to you and and so on and so forth. But you have to remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He regards you in the highest, you are in the highest esteem with regards to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is what truly matters. ذي قوة عند ذي العرش مكين مطاع ثم أمين. Right? He is obeyed at that point. Right? وما صاحبكم بمجنون. And your companion is not crazy. Right? He's not. He hasn't lost his mind. وَلَقَدْ رَآهُ بِالْأُفُقِ الْمُبِينِ. And he has seen Jibreel alayhi salam in بِالْأُفُقِ الْمُبِينِ, on the horizon. And we said before that the Prophet ﷺ, he saw Jibreel alayhi salam in his true form twice. The first instance was when he first received revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the second time was when he was raised up in Isra wal Mi'raj. Then we go into Surah Al-Infitar. Al-Infitar is from the word fatara, which we take the word iftar, or iftar from, and it literally means to split something, right? Fatara shay, إذا شقه, if you split something, right? And here it's alluding to إذا السماء انفطرت, right? The sky that splits asunder. Again, alluding to the last day and the last hour. And the reason why our iftar is a split is because it breaks, right? It splits apart our fast. So our fast, sorry, astaghfirullah. Our fast is split as soon as we split the date. So that's where our iftar comes from. But it's sama'un fatarat. At the beginning of this surah, it's all about the horrors of the Day of Judgment. إذا السماء انفطرت وإذا الكواكب انتثرت وإذا البحار فجرت وإذا القبور بعثرت علمت نفس ما قدمت وأخرت. So when sort of the sky is split open, and when the stars again they die, when the seas are fujirat, they burst and explode, and when the graves, وإذا القبور بعثرت. Ba'thara is when you tip a box upside down, right, and you cause everything that's inside it to fall out, right? That's called ba'thara. Right? That's called ba'thara. So وإذا القبور بعثرت, that's what's going to happen to the graves. It's almost like they're going to be tipped over and everybody's going to fall out of their graves. علمت نفس ما قدمت وأخرت. That is a time when every single person is going to come to know what they had done in this dunya. يا أيها الإنسان ما غرك بربك الكريم. Mankind, what has caused you to be deluded? What has allowed you to fall into this illusion with regards to your Lord? ما غرك بربك الكريم. And your Lord is the most generous and the most noble, and has granted you so much, and is so sort of like generous towards you and so favorable towards you. What has deceived you from him, right? ما غرك بربك الكريم. And this is like something so insignificant as this dunya has allowed you to be distracted, has allowed you to turn away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that has been so generous towards you. الذي خلقك فسواك فعدلك في أي صورة ما شاء ركبك. He has created you in the best of proportions and allowed for you to be this way, so that you are able to have control and dominion over everything else that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. What a favor that He has given you. كَلَّا بَلْ تُكَذِّبُونَ بِالدِّينِ. Yet despite you still disbelieve in, and you rather you call it a lie, that there is such a thing as judgment. وَإِنَّ عَلَيْكُمْ لَحَافِظِينَ. Even though there are people that are, or there are things that are watching over you, i.e. the angels. كِرَامًا كَاتِبِينَ. Noble angels. Noble angels that are writing down everything that you do. يَعْلَمُونَ مَا تَفْعَلُونَ. They know exactly everything that you are doing. And then إِنَّ الْأَبْرَارَ لَفِي نَعِيمٍ وَإِنَّ الْفُجَّارَ لَفِي جَحِيمٍ. The disparity and the contrast between those who are going to Jannah and going to Jahannam. يَصْلَوْنَهَا يَوْمَ الدِّينِ وَمَا هُمْ عَنْهَا بِغَائِبِينَ. Anyway, so that's a little bit about Surah Al-Infitar. Surah Al-Mutaffifin is all about those who do fraud, right? Those who deal in fraud. That is pretty much what Mutaffifin means. Tatfif, back in the day, was with regards to the scales. So what it was some people they would measure for themselves equally and justly, and when others were measuring for them, they would be very, very meticulous and very particular with regards to how they were measuring for them. And they made sure that their measurement was correct. But when they were measuring for others, when they were the ones doing the measurements, when it came to their own deals and their own transactions, they were treacherous with regards to it, right? They played around with their measurements, right? They did fraud. They expected to be, they received their profits in full, but other people's, they withhold, right? Wailul lil mutaffifin. Who was so there was a group, or there was a prophet that was sent to a people, and their main vice was, aside from committing shirk and kufr, their main vice was that they would defraud others and take others' property unjustly. And with regards to their wealth and economy, they were fraudsters. Name those people that were mentioned in the Qur'an. We've come through, we've mentioned them a number of times. Who was their prophet, and what was the people that he was sent to? الذين إذا اكتالوا على الناس يستوفون وإذا كالوهم أو وزنوهم يخسرون. So the first maybe 5 or 6 verses are all about the fraudsters, and do they not recognize that, ألا يظن أولئك أنهم مبعوثون ليوم عظيم يوم يقوم الناس لرب العالمين. That these fraudsters, do they not recognize that what they are doing, that they're going to be held accountable for, and they're going to be raised on the day of judgment to answer for what they have done. They may get away with it in this dunya, right? Under the watchful, they may not have the watchful eyes of their populace knowing what they are doing, so they're not held to account. Even the laws of their land may allow them to get away with it. It may be perfectly lawful for them to do that in the law of their land, but in the law of Allah and the court of Allah, this will definitely be something that they will be held accountable for. And then sort of the 2 groups that I mentioned, the group that is going to Jahannam, and and the group that is going to Jannah. And for these 2 groups, there are 2 specific places that are mentioned with regards to them that aren't mentioned anywhere else in the Quran. The first is Sijjin, and Sijjin is a place in Jahannam that is going to be reserved for these types of people. And then there is Illiyin in Jannah, which is going to be reserved for the opposite of these types of people. And then there is some mention of إذا مروا بهم يتغامزون وإذا انقلبوا إلى أهلهم انقلبوا فكهين. Some characteristics with regards to the disbelievers and how they treat the believers in this dunya. إن الذين أجرموا كانوا من الذين آمنوا يضحكون. Right? So they used to laugh and mock the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They used to laugh and mock at the believers. Look how they pray. Look what they're doing. Look what they're saying. Look what they believe. There is no proof what they believe in, and so on and so forth. All this stuff, right? They make a mockery out of the ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But in the end, فَالْيَوْمَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنَ الْكُفَّارِ يَضْحَكُونَ. It is the believers that are going to have the last laugh. And then we go on to Surah Al-Inshiqaq. Inshiqaq is, again, the skies bursting open, right? إِذَا السَّمَاءُ انشَقَّتْ, right? شَقَّ, إِذَا انفطر. Infitar and Inshiqaq are very similar in terms of their meaning. So the sky is split asunder. وَأَذِنَتْ لِرَبِّهَا وَحُقَّتْ وَإِذَا الْأَرْضُ مُدَّتْ وَأَلْقَتْ مَا فِيهَا وَتَخَلَّتْ. So it's like it's basically reaccounting the events leading up to the Day of Judgment, or on the Day of Judgment itself. And so this is going to be a common theme throughout all of these surahs, and obviously depicting it in a sort of a very, very stark way, as if you are looking at it and as if it is happening, and very short, sharp ayat that really hit the point. And then when it sort of ends, there's a commonality between the surahs as well, is that when it talks about the events of the Day of Judgment, right, and then it ends, and then it talks about something like ما غرك بربك الكريم. What deceived you with regards to your Lord? In this surah, it's يا أيها الإنسان إنك كادح إلى ربك كدحا فملاقي. That you are indeed laboring restlessly towards your Lord, right? That's how it's translated. You are indeed laboring restlessly towards your Lord. No matter what happens, right? Even though you are fighting against returning back to Allah, you're trying to run the other way. It's almost like you're being dragged back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what's going to happen? فَأَمَّا مَنْ أُوتِيَ كِتَابَهُ بِيَمِينِهِ فَسَوْفَ يُحَاسَبُ حِسَابًا يَسِيرًا. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make all of our hisabs yasir, inshaAllah ta'ala. That whoever comes and receives his book of deeds in his right hand, whoever is successful, he is going to have a very, very easy reckoning, right? وَيَنْقَلِبُ إِلَىٰ أَهْلِهِ مَسْرُورًا, and he will return to his people, to return to his family, return to the people that he belongs, aka the people of Jannah, happy, elated, jubilant. وَأَمَّا مَنْ أُوتِيَ كِتَابَهُ وَرَاءَ ظَهْرِهِ. Right? SubhanAllah, this is amazing, right? That not only are the evildoers going to receive their book of deeds in their left hand, but they're also going to receive it behind their backs. وَأَمَّا مَنْ أُوتِيَ كِتَابَهُ وَرَاءَ ظَهْرِهِ فَسَوْفَ يَدْعُو ثُبُورًا وَيَصْلَى سَعِيرًا. فَسَوْفَ يَدْعُو ثُبُورًا. They will cry, right? They will cry out. Thubura means like, help, help, when someone's like screaming out for aid, right? فَسَوْفَ يَدْعُو ثُبُورًا. This is what they're going to do when they receive that. All they're going to do is they're going to cry out for help, and those cries are going to fall on deaf ears. No one's going to hear them, and they're going to be dragged وَيَصْلَى سَعِيرًا, to the fire. إِنَّهُ كَانَ فِي أَهْلِهِ مَسْرُورًا. He was, when he was with his people, happy, content, jubilant, right? To the point where he was mocking others for not having the same way of life that he had. إِنَّهُ ظَنَّ أَن لَّن يَحُورَ. He thought that this day would never ever happen. This thing that is happening to him now will never ever happen to him. بَلَا إِنَّ رَبَّهُ كَانَ بِهِ بَصِيرًا. Rather, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knew what was going to happen to him. So again, accounts of the Day of Judgment again in this surah. Then it's Surah Al-Buruj. Surah Al-Buruj, Buruj are the abraj in the sky, the constellations of stars in the sky. And it takes its inspiration in terms of its name from the first ayah, وَالسَّمَاءِ ذَاتِ الْبُرُوجِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْمَوْعُودِ وَشَاهِدٍ وَمَشْهُودٍ. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he swears by the constellations in the sky. And he swears by a day of reckoning that is inevitably going to come. And he swears by the witness and the one who is going to be witnessed against. Meaning Allah and the people, or the angels and the people, or the Prophet and the people. قُتِلَ أَصْحَابُ الْأُخْدُودِ. The people of the trench, they were killed. And this refers to the Christians of, I think it was Najran, Bani Najran. They were the pagans at the time. They persecuted these Christians for believing in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of having a different way of life and different religion to what they had. And when when the time came and when push came to shove, they built for them a trench and they filled it up with fire, and they threw the inhabitants of Najran, who were of the Christian faith at the time, into this blazing pit. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he reaccounts their instance here, obviously referring to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his plight, that look, you are only being subjugated for the fact that you say La ilaha illallah as well. And what comes with La ilaha illallah is this Qur'an, right? And so when they have a problem with this Qur'an, they have a problem with La ilaha illallah. So when you say La ilaha illallah, they've got a problem with you, and they are making it known what their problem is. The problem for the people back in the day was that resulted, and that ended up in them persecuting them to the point where they threw them in a pit of fire, right? As a result and as a consequence of them saying La ilaha illallah. So what you are going through, Ya Rasulullah, is considerably easier. And what your believers are going through is considerably easier. And what your believers after you will go through is considerably easier than what others went through previously for just having said the same thing. So adversity always comes with Iman. إن الذين فتنوا المؤمنين والمؤمنات ثم لم يتوبوا فلهم عذاب جهنم ولهم عذاب الحريق. And then he goes on to sort of state that for the people who do stand against the believers, and they persecute them and they are unjust towards them, then and they don't repent and they don't turn back from what they are doing, then for them is going to be a heinous punishment. Whereas those who believe, in the الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات, verse number 11, لهم جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار. Rather, for the rewards of those who believed, even though they were persecuted, as long as they were patient and they persevered through it, for them is going to be gardens under which rivers flow. ذلك الفوز الكبير. That is the biggest of successes. And then from verse number 12 onwards is all about the might and power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. إن بطش ربك لشديد إنه هو يبدئ ويعيد وهو الغفور الودود ذو العرش المجيد فعال لما يريد. So it goes on, I can't go into every single verse, but it goes on to show the might of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and how even previous nations came, they were strong and they were powerful, but they eventually saw their demise as well. Wallahu min wara'ihim muhit. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all encompassing over everything that they do. بل هو قرآن مجيد في لوح محفوظ. Rather, this is the Qur'an. This is the truth that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent to you, and this is what is found also in the preserved tablet in the Lawh al-Mahfuz. Then we go on to Surah At-Tariq, was-Sama'i wat-Tariq. The Tariq is the night star. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he documents after swearing by it, فَلْيَنْظُرِ الْإِنسَانُ مِمَّا خُلِقَ. إِن كُلُّ نَفْسٍ لَمَّا عَلَيْهَا حَافِظٌ فَلْيَنْظُرِ الْإِنسَانُ مِمَّا خُلِقَ. Let every person see what is it that he has been created from, right? So don't be proud, don't be arrogant. You are created from something that if it was found on somebody's clothes, they would immediately wash it off, right? You're not created from anything that is, gold, silver, or diamonds. You're created for something that is insignificant, that is considered dirty by everybody else. خُلِقَ مِن مَاءٍ دَافِقٍ يَخْرُجُ مِن بَيْنِ الصُّلْبِ وَالتَّرَائِبِ. Then it's sort of like the miracles of how you are created. إِنَّهُ عَلَى رَجْعِهِ لَقَادِرٌ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with regards to your resurrection, He is perfectly able to do that. If He was able to create you from something like a drop of water, or from turab, or from absolutely nothing, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is perfectly able to create you again after He has already created you. فَمَهِّلِ الْكَافِرِينَ أَمْهِلْهُمْ رُوَيْدًا. It's just a matter of time. Right? Then we go into Surah Al-A'la. سَبِّحِ اسْمَ رَبِّكَ الْأَعْلَى الَّذِي خَلَقَ فَسَوَّى وَالَّذِي قَدَّرَ فَهَدَى وَالَّذِي أَخْرَجَ الْمَرْعَى. So this is all about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being the most high. And that is what Al-A'la means. And it goes on to sort of like talk about in the beginning about his الذي خلق فسوى والذي قدر فهدى والذي أخرج المرعى فجعله غثاء أحوى سنقرئك فلا تنسى. All of the amazing ways in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created, right? So He created you perfectly in terms of how He fashioned you. He ordained everything with precision. He brings forth green pastures. Then He reduces them to withered chaff, right? فَجَعَلَهُ غُثَاءً أَحْوَى. So the cycles of creation, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates, and then that creation slowly withers away and is no more. Just like the human being is born and he grows and then he withers away until he is no more. Everything has a cycle, right? Everything has a beginning and everything has an end, right? كُلُّ مَنْ عَلَيْهَا فَانٍ وَيَبْقَى وَجْهُ رَبِّكَ ذِي الْجَلَالِ وَالْإِكْرَامِ. That everything has an end and the only thing that will remain is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So if you look at all of these things should remind you, and you should recognize your own impermanence, right? Your own sort of temporary being in this life, and that ultimately you're going to return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. سَنُقْرِئُكَ فَلَا تَنْسَى إِلَّا مَا شَاءَ اللَّهُ, right? In verse number 6, سَنُقْرِئُكَ فَلَا تَنْسَى إِلَّا مَا شَاءَ اللَّهُ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will reveal to you this Qur'an, and He will recite for you this Qur'an, and He will cause you not to forget. سَنُقْرِئُكَ فَلَا تَنْسَى. You will not forget. إِلَّا مَا شَاءَ اللَّهُ, except that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills. This is a bit problematic, right? Because what does that mean? Does that mean that the Prophet ﷺ is then going to forget some of the verses that were revealed to him? No, that's not the case. The Prophet ﷺ is not going to forget anything that was revealed to him. Rather, what that means is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to choose what He's going to reveal to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Some of the things that He reveals to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah will change Himself, right? So He will reveal some verses, and other verses will come and they will abrogate those verses, or some of those verses will take precedence over others, right? And so on and so forth, like that. إنه يعلم الجهر وما يخفى, and it goes on. إن هذا لفي الصحف الأولى صحف إبراهيم وموسى. All these things that are mentioned in the Qur'an, and remember these are early verses of the Qur'an, right? Early Meccan verses. The Qur'an hasn't been revealed yet in its entirety, but whatever is going to be documented, all of the things that are going to be documented, they have already been documented in صحف الأولى صحف إبراهيم وموسى, right? Those revelations, those scriptures that were sent down to Musa and Isa and Ibrahim and all these other prophets, that some of those scriptures have reached you to this day, and other scriptures they are gone and they have disappeared, right? But these are the same teachings that I am teaching you here that were found in those early scriptures. Nothing is going to change. Then it's هل أتاك حديث الغاشية. Now these two surahs, the overwhelming event and the Most High, Al-A'la and Al-Ghashiyah, they are the sort of surahs that the Prophet ﷺ, he would recite often in Jumu'ah and in his Eid prayers and so on and so forth. These are the Masnoon surahs that we know that the Prophet ﷺ used to recite at these times. So this is Al-Ghashiyah is talking about obviously the overwhelming event, yani Al-Qiyamah, and what's going to be found sort of in Jahannam. تصلى نارا حامية تسقى من عين آنية ليس لهم طعام إلا من ضريع لا يسمن ولا يغني من جوع وجوه يومئذ ناعمة لسعيها راضية. So there's going to be a contrast between those who have disbelieved and those who have believed, and the rewards for each group, right? So the recompense of those who have disbelieved is going to be at the beginning part, وجوه يومئذ خاشعة عاملة ناصبة تصلى نارا حامية تسقى من عين آنية ليس لهم طعام إلا من ضريع. This is going to be, so the first 6 or 7 verses is all about them. Those who believed, and their recompense is the rest of the verses. وجوه يومئذ ناعمة لسعيها راضية, and so on and so forth. All the way until أفلا ينظرون إلى الإبل كيف خلقت, a reminder of how people were created, right? And the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creation around them, right? Have a look at them. And many would say that, look, we know how these things were created, so we don't need to believe in a God, or we don't need to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in order for us to recognize that these things are, what these things are, right? But that's not what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying when he says, أَفَلَا يَنظُرُونَ إِلَى الْإِبِلِ كَيْفَ خُلِقَتْ, right? That just because the camel is the way that it is, or just because a tree is the way that it is, or just because this world is the way that it is, when we recognize how it came into being, the mechanics in which we are created with, right? We understand all the minute details of chromosomes and cells and how they, multiply and so on and so forth, and how osmosis takes place in plants and so on and so forth. And we recognize all these mechanical constructs of the natural world. That doesn't negate the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put these things there in order for them to be created, right? In order for them to be to be in the world, right? And that is the marvel of Allah's creation, how He put those mechanics together, how He put all those mechanisms together in order to create what He has created. SubhanAllah. It's not that He created a camel like that, but كيف خلقت, how it was revealed, how it was created, how it came into being, how it is the way it is, and how it is able to survive in the desert, how it carries the water on its back, and so on and so forth. All of these miraculous things with regards to just the camel. And the camel obviously is noted here in the Qur'an because it is what is around you. But this is a sign for us to say that look around you and look at the creation that is around you, right? How Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created this, how He has brought it into being. Not that He clicked His fingers, وَنَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ, right? And it just came into being and that's how it is and we just accept it as God's creation. No, there's a process to it. That process is also created by Allah. And when we recognize that process, that reaffirms our own belief and that makes us stronger in our iman with regards to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Anyway, that's a little bit about Surah Al-Ghashiyah. Then it's Al-Fajr. Al-Fajr, which is obviously the dawn. Guys, is everything all right? It's really not the time for that. Fajr is the dawn. There's a lot of stuff going on here, by the way, guys. Sorry about that. The dawn is Al-Fajr. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He swears by the dawn. And every time Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears by something, it shows the importance of that particular thing. And what's more important is what comes after what He swears by. So He's swearing by these things. Okay, these things are important. We recognize that. What is it that you are swearing by those things because of? وَاللَّيْلِ وَالْفَجْرِ وَلَيَالٍ عَشْرٍ. Right, لَيَالٍ عَشْرٍ is obviously these last 10 nights. وَالشَّفْعِ وَالْوَتْرِ وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَسْرٍ هَلْ فِي ذَلِكَ قَسَمٌ لِذِي حِجْرٍ أَلَمْ تَرَ كَيْفَ فَعَلَ رَبُّكَ بِعَادٍ. And then He goes on to document what happened to the previous peoples, right? So we're swearing by these particular things in order to draw your attention to look what happened to the people before you, right? Now in this passage, right, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He talks about فَأَمَّا الْإِنسَانُ إِذَا مَا ابْتَلَاهُ رَبُّهُ فَأَكْرَمَهُ وَنَعَّمَهُ فَيَقُولُ رَبِّي أَكْرَمَنِ. And then the next ayah in verse number 15 and verse number 16, وَأَمَّا إِذَا مَا ابْتَلَاهُ فَقَدَرَ عَلَيْهِ رِزْقَهُ فَيَقُولُ رَبِّي أَهَانَنِ. That when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tests a person, ibtalahu, right? That's really important to note. He tests a person, فَأَكْرَمَهُ, and He is generous towards him, and He gives him from His blessings, وَنَعَّمَهُ, and He blesses him with all these various blessings. فَيَقُولُ رَبِّي أَكْرَمَنِ. Then a person will say regarding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah is so generous, right? Having iman is such a great thing. It's amazing to be Muslim. وَأَمَّا إِذَا مَا ابْتَلَاهُ فَقَدَرَ عَلَيْهِ رِزْقَهُ فَيَقُولُ رَبِّي أَهَانًا. But if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was to test him, ibtalahu, again, same thing, testing him by giving him and testing him by taking away from him. إِذَا قَدَرَ عَلَيْهِ رِزْقَهُ, if He wasn't to give him, فَيَقُولُ رَبِّي أَهَانًا. right? He would say that Allah has disgraced me, and this is such a bad thing, and you know what? Why is Islam so hard, and why is everything haram? And you understand? That's how it's going. The contrast. Both are a test from Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. Just because you've received riches doesn't mean you're successful. Just because you're poor doesn't mean you're not successful. Rather, it is all a test from Allah Subhanahu wa Taala to see what you will do, how firm your iman will be. That is all that matters in every single instance. Every single instance. And then it goes on to account for the hereafter, and then what's going to happen, and then in Jannah, فَيَوْمَئِذٍ لَا يُعَذِّبُ عَذَابَهُ أَحَدٌ وَلَا يُوثِقُ وَثَاقَهُ أَحَدٌ يَا أَيَّتُهَا النَّفْسُ الْمُطْمَئِنَّةُ. And this is the third type of nafs that we're going to come across in the Qur'an. The first type of nafs we took in Surah Yusuf. The second type of nafs we took in Surah Al-Qiyamah. And the third nafs we're taking here. And there are three. The first is al-nafs al-ammarati bis-su' in Surah Yusuf. The one your nafs that constantly orders you to do bad, that constantly it encourages you to sin, right? Nafs al-ammarati bis-su'. The next one is nafs al-lawwama, the one who is the blameworthy soul, or the blameworthy self. And that is the nafs that is on the next level. So that's the very bottom level, right? Ammarati bis-su' that is constantly after his desires. He sees something that he wants, and he just goes out and gets it, right? He doesn't care about the consequences to other people. Doesn't care about the consequences to his own health and his own emotional well-being and his own psyche or anything like that, or the harm that he's going to do to others. He's just going to go out and get it. Desires, 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 desires. Why can't I have it? I want it. I need it, right? Ammarati bis-su'. The next is a lawama. That's your nafs when you get to a stage of discipline where you are trying to stay on the Siratul Mustaqim, right? And you do bad things, and your nafs, it blames you for it. Why did you do that? You shouldn't have done that. You need to repent. Astaghfirullah, man. I shouldn't have done that. I feel so bad that I did that. That's your nafs al-lawama. That's the next stage. Nafs al-mutma'inna is your contentness. All right, itmi'nan, when you have content, you're perfectly content and tranquil. Tama'nina, tranquility, right? With what's happening around you, what's happened to you before in your past, what's going to happen to you in your future. Everything you have submitted it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you were like that in this dunya. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will call you on the day of judgment, Ya ayyatuha al-nafsul mutma'inna. This content nafs that was pleased with the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and was happy with whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had ordained for it. Whether he tested him with wealth or whether he tested him with poverty, both were the same. They were both a test from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it was an-nafs al-mutma'inna. Irji'i ila rabbiki radiyatan mardiyah. You are going to be pleased, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to be pleased with you. Fadkhuli fi ibadi wadkhuli jannati. Enter with my servants, the angels and the righteous, and enter into my gardens. Then it is Surah Al-Balad, the city, and the city of Mecca. So la uqsimu bihadha al-balad, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears by the sacred city of Mecca. Wa anta hillun bihadha al-balad. Whilst you are residing, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is residing in Mecca. Wa walidun wa ma walad. And the father and or the parent in that which it is brought forth. لقد خلقنا الإنسان في كبد. We have created humankind in a constant struggle, right? Kabad, right? Akbad, to constantly struggle, which shows you that life is no matter what happens in your life, it is going to be a struggle, right? That is the undertone of life. And the reason why that is really, really important to know, it's like, oh, well, why are you telling us? Why are you giving us such harsh truths for? We don't need to hear this stuff. Why don't you tell us more about Jannah? The reason why you need to know that life is a struggle is because if you have this strange or this warped understanding that life is supposed to be all about happiness and it's all about living your best life and being the best you can possibly be and staying positive all the time and all this sort of stuff, right? If you constantly have this mindset, happiness isn't forever. Happiness is a fleeting emotion that you feel from time to time when something good happens to you, but the vast majority of time it's always hardship, right? So when you have this ideal that life is a struggle and you have to recognize that life is a struggle, you will be able to better deal with the problems that come to you in your life. And so when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he lays that down to you guys, right, that he has created you in a constant struggle. You're constantly struggling with the difficulties in life, but also struggling with your own iman, right? Trying to keep it, as high as it possibly can be. And when it dips, you're struggling to reinvigorate it and reconnect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? That is the constant struggle between good and evil. There's so many struggles in life, right? That you're going to have to go through. When you recognize that is the undertone and the underpinning of life, you'll be much better equipped and much more ready, and in terms of your preparation to face life head on and to overcome the challenges that you're going to be faced. Anyway, it goes on to talk about a number of other things, sort of how ungrateful the disbelievers are, and how they are ungrateful, and sort of that. What's it called? فَلَقَتَحَمَ الْعَقَبَ وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الْعَقَبَ فَكُّ رَقَبَ, and sort of the challenge of staying upon the right path. Okay, we'll keep going because time wise. وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا وَالْقَمَرِ إِذَا تَلَاهَا. So this is a surah, the surah of the sun, Ash-Shams, and what it is it in this surah you have the longest consecutive oaths that are taken by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we can count them together. وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا وَالْقَمَرِ إِذَا تَلَاهَا وَالنَّهَارِ إِذَا جَلَّاهَا وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَاهَا وَالسَّمَاءِ وَمَا بَنَاهَا وَالْأَرْضِ وَمَا طَحَاهَا وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا. What is that? Is that 9, 6, 11? 11, right? 11 oaths that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes, and He's never taken this many oaths in any other surah. What is He taking an oath on all of these things for? وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. Subhanallah. The one who is successful is he who has purified his self. وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا, and the one he is at a loss and he is unsuccessful is the one who has dirtied his soul, dirtied himself, not been disciplined, right? Not held up to the moral code in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent down. Then it goes on to كَذَّبَتْ ثَمُودُ بِطَغْوَاهَا, account the people of Thamud and their killing of the she-camel. Then it goes on to Surah Al-Layl. I just wonder, I know I'm not going to have enough time to finish. It's going to be really difficult, inshallah. I'll try my best, inshallah. Surah Al-Layl is the night, and it's all about sort of a contrast between those who believe and those who disbelieve. Those who have Iman in their hearts and those who don't have Iman in their hearts. And it's contrasted really, really beautifully in the sense that in one instance it's talking about, it'll talk about the believers, right? So, وَمَا خَلَقَ الذَّكَرَ وَالْأُنْثَى, everything is in pairs here, right? وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَى وَالنَّهَارِ إِذَا تَجَلَّى. So layl and nahar, night and day. وَمَا خَلَقَ الذَّكَرَ وَأُنْثَى, right? The male and the female. إِنَّ سَعْيَكُمْ لَشَتَّى, your affairs in which you are exerting yourself in, they are many. And they are sort of going in different paths. فَأَمَّا مَنْ أَعْطَى وَاتَّقَى, so the one who gives and is mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَصَدَّقَ بِالْحُسْنَى, and sort of believes in and holds it true what the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has come with, فَسَنُيَسِّرُهُ لِلْيُسْرَى, so ease, we will make it easy for him, the pathway to Jannah, right? وَأَمَّا مَنْ بَخِلَ وَاسْتَغْنَى, the opposite, one who withholds, right? He doesn't give, he withholds. وَاسْتَغْنَى, and feels that he is not in need to, be mindful of anything. وَكَذَّبَ بِالْحُسْنَى, and he denies and rejects, anything that is to do with the hereafter, anything to do with what the Prophet ﷺ has come with. فَسَنُيَسِّرُهُ لِلْيُسْرَى, so we will make it easy for him, his path to Jahannam. So there's a very sort of like interesting sort of a balance between those two, and it goes on throughout the rest of the surah like that. وَالضُّحَى is all about the morning sunlight. That's ad-duha. So duha, the time just after the sun rises. During that time, that is so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears by that time, and what He swears by is sort of the fact that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has not been left sort of unguarded, right, and unprotected throughout his life. So وَالضُّحَى وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى مَا وَدَّعَكَ رَبُّكَ وَمَا قَلَى. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never abandoned you, right? And He had never left you. وَلَلْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنَ الْأُولَى وَلَسَوْفَ يُعْطِيكَ رَبُّكَ أَلَمْ يَجِدْكَ يَتِيمًا فَآوَى. Why? Because did He not find you an orphan, right? So He protected you then. وَوَجَدَكَ ضَالًّا فَهَدَى, and you were lost and He guided you. وَوَجَدَكَ عَائِلًا فَأَغْنَى, and you were poor, so he enriched you. فَأَمَّا الْيَتِيمَ فَلَا تَقْهَرْ, so as for the orphan, then do not sort of turn him away, or do not oppress him. وَأَمَّا السَّائِلَ فَلَا تَنْهَرْ, and do not sort of turn away the one who asks and requests you and begs you for help. وَأَمَّا بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ, and as for the blessings of your Lord, then speak about them. Not in a proud and boastful way, but in a way in which is showing gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for what He has given you. Okay, Alam nashrah laka sadrak is next. This is the uplifting of the heart, or the opening of your chest. And Alam nashrah laka sadrak can mean one of two things. Either Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has granted the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam ease with regards to the revelation of Islam, or it is referring to when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's chest was actually sort of cleaned and made pure by Jibreel alayhi salam. And this comes sort of as a follow-on from Wadduha. So if Wadduha is talking about how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never abandoned the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he was young, He is continuing the favors in which He has shown the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam throughout his life. So وَوَضَعْنَا عَنْكَ وِزْرَكَ الَّذِي أَنْقَضَ ظَهْرَكَ, He saved you, He's protected you. وَرَفَعْنَا لَكَ ذِكْرَكَ, and He raised you up in terms of His people's opinion of you. Maybe not at that particular time when this surah was revealed, right? Because everyone is making a mockery out of him. But now, everybody who hears his name, who has iman in their hearts, says, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, may peace and blessings be upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا إِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. Verily with hardship is ease. Verily with hardship is ease. And what this basically means, or what this sentence is in actual reality, is a flip. So it's not with hardship is ease. That's how the sentence is structured, right? But the actual order of the sentence is supposed to be فَإِنَّ يُسْرًا مَعَ الْعُسْرِ, right? And the order has been changed for various reasons in the syntax, but we don't need to go through that right now. But the order of it is فَإِنَّ يُسْرًا مَعَ الْعُسْرِ. Indeed, without a doubt, ease is with hardship. Ease is with hardship, right? With hardship is ease. With hardship is ease, right? That's one way of saying it. But understanding it in its true form is ease is with hardship, and they are two totally different. Not totally different, but they are two different perspectives of one and the same thing. Meaning that no matter how hard things are, there is ease within that hardship. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is showing you that ease. You just have to find it. If you're going through a difficulty, if you're going through hard times, within those hard times, as obviously hardship builds character, right? And there's opportunity for every hardship, as wise men have told me. So with that hardship and with that difficulty, you have to find the ease that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you through it. And then sometimes, or more often than not, that is always recognized once the hardship is done and dusted. You look back on it in hindsight and you think, subhanAllah, I'm such a better person now, I'm so strong now, and so on and so forth. But you can still recognize that stuff whilst the hardship is going on. فَإِذَا فَرَغْتَ فَانْصَبْ وَإِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ فَارْغَبْ. And in your free time, tire yourself out. نَصَبَ فَانْصَبْ. نَصَبَ means to tire out. لَقَدْ لَقِينَا مِنْ سَفَرِنَا هَذَا نَصَبًا. Musa alayhi salam, when he traveled in search of Khidr, he was very, very tired and he was exhausted in his journey. And the same thing here, nasab, فَإِذَا فَرَغْتَ, when you are free, when you are done with all the responsibilities of the dunya and of the world and of your work and of your family and so on and so forth, fansab, work hard in getting close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, work hard in your ibadah, work hard in your purification. وَإِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ فَارْغَبْ, search and long and hope for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَالتِّينِ وَالزَّيْتُونِ, this is the fig, والتين. The one ayah that stands out in this particular surah, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا ثُمَّ رَدَدْنَاهُمْ أَسْفَلَ سَافِلِينَ لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. We have created mankind in the best of proportions, the best of ways. The way you are and the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created you is the best in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could possibly make you. ثُمَّ رَدَدْنَاهُ أَسْفَلَ سَافِلِينَ. And once you have reached this stage of manhood and you've reached this the way you look now, right, in your age, you will then slowly be returned back to how you were when you were first born. ثم رددناه أسفل سافلين. Right? The most needy, the weak, the one who is reliant on everybody else to do everything for them. Right? And that's the cycle of life. That should help us to recognize that we are returning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that nothing is permanent, and we should never sort of have pride in our hearts for how we are as people. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ فَلَهُمْ أَجْرٌ غَيْرُ مَمْنُونٍ. For verily those who believe and do righteous deeds, because their main priority is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not themselves, they are the ones who would have an endless reward. فَمَا يُكَذِّبُكَ بَعْدُ بِالدِّينِ أَلَيْسَ اللَّهُ بِأَحْكَمِ الْحَاكِمِينَ. So they will never ever reject once the hour has been established, right? أَلَيْسَ اللَّهُ بِأَحْكَمِ الْحَاكِمِينَ. Is not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the best of judges and those who hold people to account. Then it's Surah Al-Alaq, which is the morsel of or the clot of blood that mankind is created or formed from in their mother's womb. And these were the first verses that were revealed of the Qur'an. اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق خلق الإنسان من علق اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم. These were the first 5 verses that were revealed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Ghar Hira when he first met Jibreel alayhi salam. Then it's Surah Al-Qadr, and obviously the decree, the night of glory, the night of power, which is obviously talking about Laylatul Qadr. And obviously, inshallah, we hope and we pray that we were the ones who actually saw Laylatul Qadr in these last 10 nights. What time is iftar? 2 past. Okay. There's a lot to go over, guys. There's a lot of surahs. There's a lot to say about each surah. Al-Bayyinah is sort of the clear proof, and it does pretty much exactly what it says in the tin. It is there as a proof, or it mentions that sort of a proof has come to mankind, and the Prophet ﷺ is that proof. رسول من الله يتلو صحف مطهرة فيها كتب قيمة. Right? And the fact that this proof is something that is supposed to unite the hearts of people, but only those people who don't have iman in their hearts, rather they have pride and arrogance in their hearts, they are the ones who will be disunified by this proof that has come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. رضي الله عنهم ورضوا عنه. The reward of those believers, one of the rewards of the believers, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to be pleased with them, and they are going to be pleased with Allah. They are going to attain the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then it's Surah Al-Zalzala. Zalzala is the earthquake. This is really cool because إِذَا زُلْزِلَتِ الْأَرْضُ زِلْزَالَهَا, when the earth shakes and it quakes. وَأَخْرَجَتِ الْأَرْضُ أَثْقَالَهَا, and when the earth it pours forth all of its content, its burdens, all of the things that have been polluted in it. It just sort of regurgitates and spits that all out, right? وَأَخْرَجَتِ الْأَرْضُ أَثْقَالَهَا وَقَالَ الْإِنسَانُ مَا لَهَا, and mankind will be saying, what is wrong with the earth, right? So that's what we look at when we see calamities that are happening around the world. Waters are contaminated, rivers are being contaminated, and so on and so forth. Things are happening in the world. This whole COVID-19 thing, and we're asking, what the hell is wrong with the world, man? What's happening in the world? How can things be like this, right? That's exactly the same reaction that they're going to have. يومئذ تحدث أخبارها. It's almost as if the earth is going to speak about the things that took place on it, right? And that could be in reference to Qiyamah, when we are all when we are all resurrected. And that's why, when we pray our sunnah prayers after salah, right? So say like we prayed our fard prayer. We see people, they stand up and then they move spot, and then they pray their sunnah in a different spot. Have you ever wondered why that is? It's because the earth will bear witness, right, about what happened on it. And the earth, that point of that earth will bear witness that you prayed on that point. So the more areas in which you pray with, that's the more areas which will bear witness for you on the day of resurrection, inshallah. Then it sort of ends with that nothing is going to be hidden from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Mithqala dharra, the tiny atoms worth of action, a small a tiny seedling of what of actions that you do, whether good or evil, are all going to be known to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and are going to be brought to account. Al-Adiyat. Surah Al-Adiyat is the galloping horses, right? And this is really cool because it talks about the galloping horses for the first half of the surah. وَالْعَادِيَاتِ ضَبَحًا فَالْمُورِيَاتِ قَدْحًا فَالْمُغِيرَاتِ صُبْحًا فَأَثَرْنَ بِهِ نَقْعًا. So it's like these galloping horses. They're in the battlefield, and they are galloping, and they are sort of running in the heat of in the midst of the battle. And whilst they are running, all of this, all of the earth and the dust is brought up from the battle. فَوَسَطْنَ بِهِ فَأَثَرْنَ بِهِ نَقْعًا فَوَسَطْنَ بِهِ جَمْعًا. And they're bringing up all of this dust from their hooves as they are riding into the heat of the battle. And when they get bang smack in the middle of the battlefield and the swords meet each other, إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لِرَبِّهِ لَكَنُودٌ. Right? The scene suddenly changes, and you are no longer in that scene of the battlefield of the galloping horses. Rather, إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَكَنُودٌ. Verily, mankind is ungrateful. Ajib. Turning the attention of the listener with such sort of intensity and direction. Then it's the Qari'ah, which is the striking disaster, and about what's going to happen in Qiyamah. Takathur is next after that, which is sort of constantly wanting more. Right? Takathur is having an excess of everything. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opens up this surah with Alhaakumut takathur. This want of excess has blinded you, has caused you to forget, has caused you to be heedless. Alhaakumut takathur. Hatta zurtumul maqabir, until you visit the graves. Death reminds you of your true purpose in this life. Then it's Al-Asr, time. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala swears by Al-Asr, obviously the importance of time. Innal insana lafi khusr. Everybody, what is it about time? What is so important about time? That mankind, with regards to it, is always in a state of loss. And there are an exception to that rule. All of mankind, no matter what happens, from the day you're born to the day you die, to the day you die, you are always in a constant state of loss, except those who believe and do righteous deeds, and they join with one another and they aid one another upon truth, and they engage with one another and support one another upon being patient. That is the only exception to the rule, and there is so much more depth to that surah that inshallah we could go into. All right, I'm very cautious of the time. There's a couple of surahs to go, and there was some really, really cool things to speak about. Some of the surahs that are coming up as well, and some of the surahs that sort of passed us by as well. But unfortunately, we haven't sort of had the time to touch upon the vast majority of them. So please forgive me for not having been able to fulfill what we set out to fulfill in the first place. But inshallah, I hope that whatever has been said with regards to this Qur'an has been beneficial, and we have learnt a great deal with regards to the revelation that has been sent to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I hope that some light has been shed on how this Qur'an has been put together, and through that we are able to get closer in some way to understanding this book, and it's not wholly sort of alien to us, and it's otherworldly and we don't get it, but rather, it does become the spring of our hearts. It does become the source of guidance and the source of solace. It does become the source of connect that we have to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I hope that all of those things have been achieved, inshallah ta'ala. I know there's loads of comments and questions, but inshallah, this is not the end. We will certainly meet up tomorrow, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, at the same time of 7:30 for our quiz night, inshallah ta'ala. And we can talk more about perhaps some of the things that we missed out then as well, inshallah ta'ala. Jazakumullahu khairah for all your guys' patience. It is now time for Maghrib. So I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح.